The New York State Department of Transportation presents the DOT POD.
And welcome into the DOT POD, a special celestial edition. I'm Josh Heller.
And I'm Anya Cardos.
And we are delighted to have you joining us.
You know, the upcoming solar eclipse is expected to be an awe-inspiring celestial event, captivating astronomers, avid stargazers, and casual observers alike. I know you and I are both very much interested in this.
Cannot wait.
But you know, it also poses some crucial challenges, especially for those of us living and visiting areas within the eclipse's viewing path, namely traffic jams and heavy congestion.
Yeah, for about 2 years now, nearly, the New York State Department of Transportation has been planning for the potential impact the eclipse may have along our roadways and for the traveling public. So on today's episode, we're going to hear how this monumental task to make this a smooth experience for all eclipse watchers has been a collaborative effort from the smallest communities to the highest office in the state.
Now, we're going to hear from Becky Gibson-Schott of DOT's Office of Traffic Safety and Mobility in just a few minutes. But first, we have the pleasure of having Jessica DeCerce, Director of Interagency Operations at the New York State Executive Chamber, joining us right now. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. So I guess, Jessica, we'll start. We mentioned that it's been, almost 2 years, close to that this has been kind of in planning. And I guess one of the nice things about an eclipse like this is we've known about it for decades, maybe a century, millennia, if you think about it. So this is not coming out of the blue, but it is something that needs an awful lot of planning. When did that start, the initial conversation start, with you and with your team, as well as with all the other agencies in the state trying to put together a plan?
Sure. To that, it was raised with us probably about 2 years ago, a little bit less than 2 years ago, talking about ESD said, hey, there's going to be this eclipse. This is going to be great. We look at what has happened in other states in 2017. There were a lot of people. How are we going to deal with this? And they were looking at it from a tourism perspective. It was their job to look at it from a tourism perspective. But then we started talking about this and thinking, well, wow, that's a lot of people. And that means that's a lot of traffic. That's a lot of mass gathering. That's a lot. And so the suggestion was made to the Director of State Operations, hey, you should put an interagency task force together. So because I was interested in the solar eclipse and had done some research saying, hey, look, this is a big deal, the Director of State Operations asked me if I would sort of lead the task force. So we put the task force together about 18 months ago. There are representatives from about 20 agencies. We have about 80 people. It's sort of a bifurcated structure. There's what I call the push and the pull. The pull is we want people to come to New York. We have great tourism assets here. New York State is a wonderful place to watch the eclipse. Revenue that is coming in. It's great for local governments. So that's the pull. The push is when you have millions of people coming into places where there are limited places of entry and egress, right? Like the Adirondacks are only, as we were talking about, one road in, one road out. And looking at examples from other states in 2017, their after action reports, and it was all about traffic backups. So in addition to that, making sure if people are on the road, people aren't pulling over. So there's safety, so the public safety component. So we said we had a, sort of dual structure with the marketing and communication side of it and the public safety side of it. And so we the first push was the marketing part. And now the real push is the public safety part, using marketing and communicating with marketing and social media and all that other stuff.
Well, and it seems like the big marketing push is it's come for the eclipse, stay for New York. And that's so it kind of does both, where it's like, hey, come to New York. We want you here, but just, hang around a little bit. There's stuff to see.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, the initial stuff was a lot of fun. There are a lot of fun things. We have an artist who designed a great New York State poster that's available on the state's Eclipse website, which I encourage everybody to go take a look at. There's a lot of great resources on there. Including our own official New York State Spotify Eclipse podcast.
Ooh.
Which has got some, as a colleague of mine said, some really deep cuts in there. It's not just the stereotypical things you'd think of, like total eclipse of the heart, which is on there. But so there's some fun stuff with that. But now we're really sort of emphasizing to people the safety aspects. the protective eyewear.
And what is the website so people can go?
It's I Love New York/Eclipse.
And if you just go to the I Love New York site, you can certainly find links to it there
Yes.
as well. We'll have links to it in our podcast description as well, so you can go there and click on that. But a great resource there as well.
Let's go into the early days of these conversations with these agencies and then turning that into messaging. How did this turn into a plan? And then can you explain to us what that plan
Sure.
how that plan emerged and what it became?
Sure. We wanted to make this process as collaborative as possible. So we got the task force together, identified the agencies that we thought would be the best agencies to help with the planning process, the ones that had like the most, I think it's stake, right? And the most expertise in this. So DOT, Thruway, Department of Health, ESD with the tourism aspect of it, Department of Environmental Conservation, all of the people who are used to dealing with the public and sort of weather and large scale events, and sort of broke those up into, we named 2 co-chairs, one on the marketing side from ESD and the other one from Dishes on the public safety side. And so the co-chairs and I sort of walked through like, what do we think we need to split this up into committees? What makes sense? So we did that, and there are 3 committees on each side, and they're what you would think they would be, Public safety is like the interops, like what are we going to do day of? It's traffic and it's health, right? And on the marketing side, it's education, and it's marketing, and it's, like the internal and the external, right? How are we going to deal with this? And then so we had an initial meeting with the task force members in person, which we don't all do very much anymore, right? And sort of asked them to divide themselves up. What is your interest area? Where do you want to go? And then had them talk through, we said, these are the committees we think make sense. Tell us what you think, right? And then put yourselves in these committees and come up with a mission statement for your committees, and then come up with, strategic plans after that. Like what's your 1.0, what's your 2.0, and then put some timelines on that. So it sounds like a really boring process, but it was really an iterative, very experiential, people were really hands-on doing this in a room in the Empire State Plaza, 18 months ago. And so it gave us a roadmap, and we've followed that roadmap, and it has been really great.
So how has that informed you leading up to the eclipse? Namely, you said you did your own research, you looked at what happened in other states. What were some of those issues that you were really concerned about, and how have they been addressed? So
I think traffic. So we looked at the after action report. You had in 2017, you had a solar eclipse that basically was the other side of the X that we're going to see in this, it went from the Pacific Northwest down through, the middle of the country, and then down through like the southern states. So a lot of those states did after action reports and posted those after action reports online, which were such a great resource. Like just so you could learn from, and there was not a lot that was surprising in there, I think, from a conceptual perspective, but I think the breadth and the depth of, of 10 hours of a traffic jam is that was shocking.
Yeah,
to me.
because that's hard to imagine, actually. People running out of gas, I would imagine, too.
Yes. Yeah. And everything that comes with that. Right? The porta potties, the gas, the people pulling over on the side of the road, the risk from, for that. Throughway rest stops, please make sure you have a lot of toilet paper on hand, right? Do you have extra
it's important
people?
Stuff.
Yeah.
It is, but you have extra people who can take out garbage because you're going to have more garbage. Everybody understand that we're planning ahead for this because you're going to have staff, right? So we talk about the public safety part of this. We talk about it like we're planning for a statewide weather event, only we know exactly when this is going to start and exactly when the darkness is going to end. Like that's not a negotiable.
That's very ominous, by the way. When the darkness
will end. Yeah. So
I mean, no, it's true, and so you look at after it. It's an interesting phenomenon in that it's 4 minutes, 4 and change minutes at most. And I think with the major issues, and again, I haven't read the after action reports like you have, but it's okay, it's over, let's go home. Well, maybe not.
Right. It's the going home part that seems to be the most challenging aspect of all of this. That said, what is your advice for the traveling public? What would you like to tell them?
Stay. I mean, I really do. I mean, there's this really interesting graphic that I have from, I think it was from one of the state's after action reports, where you look at, like, it's a Google Maps, you know, a red on the traffic part, the red is bad. And you can see that all of their interstates or all of their roads where there's red, it follows the exact path of the eclipse.
Wow.
So we've done everything that we can, right? Sounding the horn, stay for New York. You know, any of the safety messaging we're doing now is check your traffic. I can't force people not to get back on the road right after. And, you know, we have talked to some of the other states and they've said, you know, we tried. And, you know, the only thing that you can do is keep pounding that messaging out. But people are going to get on the road after. There's going to be traffic. There's nothing that we can do to eliminate that or stop it. But we have to just make sure that we have measures in place to mitigate whatever is going to happen and make sure that people can have this experience can be safe and enjoyable.
And not to toot my own horn, but I'm going out to Rochester. I'm taking my 7-year-old, and we're taking a train. Taking a train out the day before,
amazing.
taking a train back the day after, and not going to worry about the roads at all.
I love that.
So
That
win
is
for me.
fantastic. And by the way, Rochester is going to be a great place to watch the eclipse.
Now, one thing I do want to see from you, and I hope I know the answer to this, but when you get kind of in the weeds on this and all the details and specific and the complications and all these things that could go right, they could go wrong, a lot of pressure, a lot of nervousness, I hope that you still can step back and kind of revel in the majesty of what's about to happen. I mean, it's something that hasn't happened in almost 100 years here, and it's not going to happen in some time. I mean, it is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Will you be able to disassociate at least for 4 minutes and enjoy, you know, everything that comes with the eclipse?
I hope so. You know, I'm not going to promise that.
I hope so too, for your sake.
But I do hope so. You know, it would be a shame sort of to go through all of this and sacrifice, you know, and I hope for all of my colleagues that have been involved in planning that they have the opportunity to watch. I wish that more for them than for me, right? I mean, because they've all worked so hard and there have been such a tremendous number of people involved in this planning. I just want to make it to April 9th and celebrate we made it through the eclipse safely day.
I understand that a lot of venues, you were talking about the Science Museum, there are other organizations that initially didn't want to hold any party or anything like that, and now they have viewing parties. They're all of a sudden kind of getting into the action. It's almost like a snowballing effect. Have you heard about this too across the state?
Yeah, and it's wonderful and scary, right? I mean, anytime that you get that, you know, when you have mass gatherings, you get that many people together, then, you know, you're adding to traffic, you're adding to, you know, to a lot of the other scary things. But, you know, it's great. I do know a lot of schools are either going to dismiss early or are not going to have school that day, have the kids in that day, which I think is great, because the last thing you also want from a traffic perspective is having 40 kids stuck on a school bus.
And I do think it's also important, and you kind of briefly mentioned earlier, even if you're not in the full totality, wear some glasses. Get some glasses. I heard somewhere what's it, like 15 years of aging for your eyes if you look at the sun during the eclipse without glasses on. It's crazy.
Is there any advice on those?
On glasses?
Yes.
I'm happy. I mean, we, the state, have some, but we didn't order, you know, not with the intention to provide everybody in the state with a pair of glasses. I wish we could. But I know that a lot of the places that are holding events are looking, this is a great marketing opportunity, solar eclipse glasses, because people are going to hang on to these. These are not something you're going to throw.
Yeah, souvenirs.
Yeah, they're not something you're going to throw away. I actually brought the New York State eclipse glasses that we have. But what I would say is this is serious. You need to be wearing eclipse glasses if you're going to look at the sun. And you need to wear them for the entire time. Don't be tempted. You know, there's a lot of great and simple guidance out there. I'll push our website again. We've got the FAQs and the guidance there, but you know, if you like go to good sources, like NASA has good guidance, like the places that you would think would be good guidance, you know, like consider your source here. But yes, please obey all of the safety. Like this, it's not a joke.
But we should point out, don't wear the glasses when you're driving.
No, because you can't see anything.
If you
you
haven't
can't
worn,
see a
and it's
thing.
funny, I just put a pair on. We
Yeah.
got a pair, and I put them on. I don't know, a couple weeks ago. You can't see. And I thought they were broken. I was like, oh, these don't work at all. No, they do if you look at the sun, but
They
you
block out
you
all
can't
light
see
in the room.
anything. So please don't. This seems obvious, but don't wear them when you're driving.
Well, and to that point, there are some fake. I'm not trying to be paranoid about this, but there are some fake eclipse or like not really up to standard eclipse glasses on there. So if you put a pair of eclipse glasses on and you can see across the room, they're not good
Across
glasses.
the room, you can see your hand in front
Yeah.
of your face.
Exactly. They're not good
that's-
glasses.
It's
Okay.
serious. It is serious, but clearly, obviously, extremely important.
That's a very good tip. Thank you. And your glasses, for those who can't see them, they kind of look like those 3D movie glasses.
Yeah.
Well,
Can't see you.
With
but yeah.
I love
they,
New
they
York
look
on.
snazzy, though. I will say they do look
They
snazzy.
are.
They're very
snazzy.
fashionable.
We have our own. We came up with a New York State Eclipse logo, so that when we're asking agencies to partner with us to put messaging out, that we have that logo on there, so everybody knows this is actually an official state message.
Well, Jessica, first of all, thanks so much for coming down and chatting with us about this. You can tell the passion that you have about it, and we're also extremely excited about it as well. And I do hope from the bottom of my heart that you can enjoy it, and not just enjoy the aftermath, but you can enjoy the actual event itself, and really kind of take in the fruits of your labor.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
And so we want to welcome in Becky Gibson-Schott from DOT family. Becky, first of all, thanks for joining us. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your position, and what you do with DOT.
Hi, I am the Director of the Transportation Systems Management and Operations Bureau in the Office of Traffic and Safety. I've been with DOT for 27 years, believe it or not, and I have spent almost all of that time in traffic.
Becky, back in 2017, you witnessed what went on the ground when an eclipse happened. Talk about that. You were in Wyoming, and what was that like, and how did that kind of inform you into like what we need to do here in New York State when this occurs?
I did. Some friends of mine and I flew out and visited another friend of ours in Jackson, Wyoming. She had a great house right underneath the Grand Tetons across from the national park. We walked over to one of their neighbors' house and we watched the eclipse from there. It was fantastic. It was one of the most incredible things I've really ever witnessed.
So obviously you got to see the majesty of that. So you now know why all these people are planning on coming to New York for this and traveling great distances for this. So talk about what you saw as far as from a traffic standpoint.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure when you were late, that's not why you went there, but you're like, you know what, I'm here. Let's take a gander at what that was like. Not necessarily what people can expect, but what could potentially, be in the cards.
It was, I'm a traffic nerd. So whenever I travel, I'm always looking at what's on their variable message signs, what's going on with traffic, what's going on with construction. So we were actually, for the eclipse, we arrived in Denver on Saturday. We rented a car. We drove to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and then we drove out to Jackson. We had no problem with traffic whatsoever that weekend. The eclipse happened. Of course, we walked over to a friend's house. That was fine. But then we decided after the eclipse was over, we were sitting around. We're like, what are we going to do? So we said, we haven't been to the national park across the street. Let's go over to the national park. And we made the mistake of driving across the road to the national park. And we sat on the ring road for about 3 hours.
Wow.
It was bumper to bumper traffic the entire way through. Everybody and their brother had the idea to go to the national park, whether they were already there for the eclipse and taking pictures, or if they were like us thinking, hey, let's just go to the national park and see what's there. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
Do you feel the people who were participating in this beautiful celestial event, watching it, had any idea that it could take hours, like even 10 hours to just get back home?
I don't. I had friends. I have a friend in Cheyenne. We have friends in Denver. And they actually decided, hey, we're just going to drive a couple hours north and see this eclipse and then drive home. And they were stuck on the interstate for 10, 12 hours. Wow. I don't think anybody expected that. We were talking the next weekend as we were traveling home with these friends, and I was stunned. I couldn't believe 10 hours. You were sitting on the highway for 10 hours.
So taking what you saw and learned out of that experience and bringing it here to New York, what has your office done to prepare for this eclipse?
We've been doing a lot. One of the big things that we have been doing, obviously, as part of my job, I oversee the traffic management centers and some of their policies and procedures. So when planning for the eclipse started, this experience really allowed me to understand what the potential impacts were. So whenever I talk about it to a group of people, I usually get feedback like, no, this isn't going to be that big of a deal. It's just an eclipse. Who's really going to do this? Mm-mm. And I can use my experience to say, listen, this is what happened in 2017. In New York State, we have places like Niagara Falls and the Adirondacks, and we have some beautiful locations that people are going to flock to.
So what kind of messaging are we getting out there? What are we saying and what are we doing, especially when we're talking about places like the Adirondacks, where these are like 2-lane highways? There's no way to really get from A to B without a direct shot. You have to wait in that line then.
You do. So our message is really arrive early, stay late. If you can walk to your viewing site, do it. It's going to be great no matter where you are. So if you're standing on the street in Lake Placid, just look up. If you're at a park or an airfield or whatever, stay as long as you can. If you can walk to your destination, do that.
How long have you guys been preparing for this, been thinking about this, been talking about this? When did you guys start to really sit down and go, okay, this is happening now. We need to make sure we have a plan ready to go?
Personally, I've been planning for it since 2017. The friends I went out to Wyoming with, we made a plan then. We're going to see this together in 2024 again. But work-wise, probably about 2 years ago, FHWA started having some webinars and started sending out some documents to talk about it. And I would say about a year or so ago, the governor's office really ramped up their planning. We put together a team here at DOT to start planning, whether it's messaging for our VMS signs or TMC operations, expanded help operations, towing. We've been putting our plans together probably for about a year, and it's really ramped up over the last couple months.
I want you, if you can, take us through what that day is going to be like from the vantage point of someone in one of our traffic management centers, specifically in like a Rochester or a Buffalo or, one of the places where the totality is happening. Obviously, there's going to be coverage everywhere, but specifically in those places, what's going to be happening, with those people that day? I mean, what's staffing going to look like? What's it going to be? In the epicenters at that point?
Well, honestly, it's probably really going to be business as usual with a lot more traffic. So they're definitely going to have an eye on what's going on. They're going to be monitoring maybe a little bit more closely the highways, because I think you're going to see a lot more traffic starting up earlier in the day. A lot of people traveling to get to their viewing locations, wherever that might be. And then I think you'll see traffic kind of die down during totality. And once that's over, you're probably going to see traffic pick up, and probably going to see it pick up a lot. I think there's going to be certain areas in the state, and unfortunately, a lot of them are rural. So we don't have a lot of intelligent transportation systems out in those rural areas. We don't really have camera coverage. We don't really have detection out there. So we're going to use other resources as we can. We are expanding our highway emergency local patrols. So we'll have a truck on I-87.
Those help trucks that you see out on the road all the time?
Those are the ones, yep. So they'll be on patrol on I-87 up north in like the Plattsburgh area. They're also going to be on I-81. These are areas we generally don't have help coverage. So they'll kind of be our eyes and ears. We're also, if we know of staff in those areas, we'll be able to reach out, see what's going on. Of course, we have connections with the state police and other emergency partners. So we'll be just trying to keep an eye on as many resources as we can to find out what's happening.
Do you have any concerns that while this is happening, that people will just pull over?
Yes.
You do. So what's your advice for the traveling public to ensure that everyone's safe?
Don't do it. Part of our messaging plan, absolutely, do not stop on the shoulders. We need the shoulders. If there's an emergency vehicles need to be on those shoulders. So don't pull over on the side of the road. Make sure you're at your location early. The last thing we need is people stopping all over our highways to look up at this eclipse. So arrive early, stay late, make sure that you are in location prior to the eclipse occurring so you can get the best view of this eclipse.
I guess we'll finish up. Last words of advice for people who are going to be coming, no matter how far they're coming, we're going to be coming to see this this once-in-a-lifetime event.
I would say definitely take the time to experience it. One of the things that had been broadcasted when I saw the eclipse in 2017 was that it's going to be more than just something to see. The crickets are going to chirp. The birds are going to stop chirping. The temperature is going to drop
because they think it's nighttime.
They
Because
do,
they think it's nighttime, which I find so cool.
Well,
so cool.
And let me tell you, one of the coolest things in Wyoming that we heard, actually, so more than just seeing the eclipse, where we were, it was outside the city and there's farms around. So totality hits, and all of a sudden, the cows at a nearby farm started going nuts. Moo,
Really?
moo, moo. Yeah, they were mooing like crazy. And it's because they thought it was nighttime. And at night, they're supposed to be
in the barn.
inside.
Yeah.
So they went completely nuts. But we heard the crickets. The temperature literally dropped at least 20 degrees. It was
Really?
it did.
20 degrees.
20 degrees. It was about 50 degrees out during totality. It's such an experience. It's way more than just viewing the eclipse. It's feeling it. It's hearing it. There's so much to experience. So definitely take the time, experience what you can.
Well, Becky, thank you so much for taking some time and sitting down with us and providing your perspective, not just from what's going on with DOT, but from what you experienced. And I know I'm a little bit more excited about this than I was going into this.
Yeah, I learned a lot. Thanks.
Sure, anytime.
Well, that'll just about do it for us here from the DOT POD. Honestly, Anya, I know we've talked about it. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. This is awesome. This should be something that obviously we are preparing for, but everyone should be excited about.
That's right. I'm excited, and it's a good reminder. Plan ahead.
Plan ahead.
And stay and don't fight the traffic.
iloveny.com/eclipse. That's the best place to get all your information on the eclipse, on planning your trip. iloveny.com/eclipse. We'll also have a link in the episode description, so feel free to click on it there as well. But we certainly want to say a hearty thank you to both our guests, Jessica DeCerce and Becky Gibson-Schott, for joining us and providing some insight for us here. A lot of great information in this one, and you can tell that they're excited about this as well as much as we are, and as much as I'm sure many of our listeners are.
This was a really good one, and I like all the advice.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
really important, and you're playing it smart by taking the train.
Hey, listen.
Just want to give you props for that.
I appreciate that. Might as well. Stay off the road if you can, but certainly take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime event. So, for Anya, I'm Josh. We'll be right back here on the DOT POD.